I went from being a producing tech to kind of like a shop multiplier.
Tonight, I have two shop foremen on the show. We've had several of them before, and we've got two of them on the show tonight. And why do I have them on the show? I want to dig into something the industry talks around, but rarely talks through. What happens when you actually take the best technician that's on the shop floor and turn them into a leader? Do you make them responsible for everybody's problems, or do you actually let them run loose and fix and diagnose people? Fix and diagnose processes, fix and diagnose communication breakdowns. And sometimes what happens when they need to be the calmest person in the building because everyone keeps bringing them emergencies and fires to put out. Both of these dudes have like 15 years of experience on the floor. Fixing, not fixing, now being in a leadership position. And that's why I want to see what it's like when I talk to two people at the same time who both have a commitment to the craft of leadership on the shop floor. Ladies and gentlemen, Aaron Marion, Michael Ramirez on the Wrench Turners podcast. Awesome. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thanks for having us.
Marvelous.
Nice.
Marvelous. So I've known Michael for a little bit now, but I know him a little bit. His store uses our stuff. He's been in our TSL chat. He's been on SDL a whole bunch of times. I know little bits and pieces. I know very little, if anything at all, other than the referral of the dude in the middle. And I'm not sure if he's in the middle for you guys out there watching. He's Aaron Marion, who is a shop foreman for a Porsche store. Now, the interesting thing here is we've had folks from all kinds of different verticals, all in technicians on the show. We've not yet had a luxury brand on the show like this. So I'm very interested to get the same questions answered like we always have for almost, I think 100 guests now or something like that, and how it differs for someone who has exclusively worked for Porsche. So look forward to that, ladies and gentlemen. But first and foremost, let's get them to introduce themselves.
All right, you want me to take it first? I'm Mike
Take it
Ramirez.
first.
I've been working on cars since 2012. Started in the express bays like most people do, and kind of enjoyed the environment. Grew up in a car family, but really it wasn't my first plan. Like I said, I enjoyed it as a hobby, but I was working more towards graphic design, and life changes comes at you fast. And at that point, kind of decided, hey, this is where I am. Had a lot of people pushing me. At that time, I was still kind of salary. And, you hang around some good guys and they see potential in you. It's usually more than you see in yourself. And you just keep getting that push. And eventually I moved to flat rate and definitely was under the wings of multiple people in that first dealership. And it was a wild ride, but it was an awesome ride. I definitely learned a lot from everyone. And really, that's when everything changed. After my first or second year, that's when I decided, like, whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to try and be the best at it. And depending on the people that you have around you, that can be like an inspiration, or it could be something where everyone feeds each other, or it's just a support team that, you just help people get through the day to day. But I was lucky enough, I had all of those with the people around me. So it's something that propelled me to be better, like day in, day out. Hard weeks, great weeks, able to save for my first house in a pretty short amount of time with those guys by my side. Really, my story now is I feel like I went from being a producing tech to kind of like a shop multiplier. Like, I don't care to be the highest performing or the highest hour turner anymore. It's more about being someone who helps the other guys in the shop multiply their hours, remove bottlenecks, fix those processes that we're talking about, because we run into roadblocks with manuals being wrong all the time. So as a team, we come together, find a different way to attack these problems. And usually it's a more efficient way. Everyone making more money comes down to a better team, comes down to a better product, a better service, a happier customer. And I could say with our team here, it's definitely getting better year after year, month after month, day after day. So I've gone from building and working on cars to building and working with teams. So it's been a great career path for me. One piece of advice I feel like I could give a technician.
Would you say that now to get back to that I want to touch on something you said there early on. It sounded like you had some mentors early on in that first little bit, in that first year. Can you very, very simply, would you say maybe a sentence, what would you describe as the most impactful thing that your mentors did in that first year?
Man, I'm going to say the most impactful thing was support, but support without doing the work for me. So just being there for
Ah,
me.
gotcha.
Like, don't do it for them, right? That would have made a different me, but helping me through
Mhm.
it just by support and being there watching, giving verbal directions, but I'm not going to do it for you. That stern kind
Gotcha.
of support, that was most
Would
beneficial
you
for me.
say now leading into Aaron and your kind of what got you into the trade kind of deal, kind of introducing yourself and what got you into the trade kind of deal? Would you say you have had a similar experience where you had mentors helping you in that first little bit, kind of flipping that switch?
They still help me.
They still,
Yeah.
yeah, they kind of do, don't they?
Yeah, I have had some really great mentors in my entire career, and some of them I still talk to weekly, sometimes daily. Some
Mhm.
really great dudes in this business. Some of them retired out, and I still talk to some of those guys. They still help me.
Now, and it's interesting to hear Michael say, his idea of what his career was going to be would be graphic design to start, and then found himself in a dealership turning wrenches, and then ended up with mentors that helped him kind of flip that switch into becoming a better technician, and then ultimately now a shop foreman, 10, 15 years later. What was that first year like with you from as Michael's beginning of his career didn't start at a Porsche store, yours did. So how would you describe your first year? What was that moment that got you into the trade? And then what was that first year like?
So I didn't start at a Porsche store. It is Porsche. I'd be remiss if I didn't correct the vernacular. Um, I was actually working at AutoZone, um, 20 years ago, it feels like now, maybe longer. And a kid that worked there with me quit because he got like a $2 raise to go change oil at this mom and pop.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, $2 is 20% of the money,
Hmm.
25% of the money. I think I made $8 an hour. So, $2 raise is massive for a young guy. So I went to change oil as I can change oil. I did automotive technology in high school and really enjoyed it and really liked it. And that was the era where they told you had to go to college. Like you had to go to college, you had to go to college, you had to go to college. Well, I couldn't afford college. And so I wound up changing oil and I would help the techs. I really liked it like a lot. I'm like, this is like a cool job, but the shop was small, mom and pop, Midwest. Nobody could afford anything. And one of the first mentors I had, it's funny because he had worked several Highline places, and because of family stuff, he wound up at this store in the Midwest. And he said, well, if you want to do this, you need to work at a high end store. He's like, you want to move to work in high end. That's the better jobs. He's like, they have nicer shops, they have better tools, blah, blah, blah. He was very encouraging of me of like, if this is what you want to do, pursue it at the highest level that you can possibly squeeze yourself into. And that's kind of how I wound up in Texas. It's funny because full circle, he's a Porsche tech now too. I still talk to him. He works at a Porsche dealer now too. So like he left that store, took his own advice, and went back to working for high end dealers. Some probably 20 years later down the road, he's a Porsche tech now too. So he gave me some great advice, got me kind of pushed into that, and took his own advice too.
Excellent. I think one of the things that you kind of said there, that higher end stores, meaning either the premium brands like Cadillac and Acura, or luxury brands like Porsche or BMW or Audi, it stands to reason that the stigma is that they are a better shop and that they are
Yeah,
a cleaner shop, that they are a more organized shop. That's
yeah, and I
as
think that
as we
I think
both know that that's not always the case. And
yeah.
the flip
I think
side that
10 years
is
ago that was true, and I think that, as a kid, I didn't know any better. I thought, "Oh, well, this
no.
guy knows what he's talking about."
Exactly. But I think one of the interesting things to come from that, even though there are domestic stores and import stores now that are at the same level in terms of organization and production value and cleanliness and organization of the shop and so on and so forth and tools and da 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 da. Da. I think the fundamentals of having an individual telling you that you need to work at a higher end store, not because you need to work at a higher end store, but you need to work at a higher end store, perhaps from a mental standpoint, that it's organized, it's clean,
Yeah.
it's focused. There's a process to things. They're looking to make money, but also drive results and so on and so forth. And that led you to a Porsche store and what is effectively been the last 15 years of your experience working at a higher end store. Now let's flip that to the opposite side of the coin, because Michael is not working at a Porsche store and has been working for roughly the same amount of time and is now in a leadership role on the shop floor. How would you say, not necessarily about the store that you're working at now, but over your career as an aggregated average, would you have said that the stores that you've worked at have been as organized, as clean, as capable, as well tool supplied as you would have liked.
I think that's the big burden. So some of those roadblocks that I'm talking about, you overlook some of the things that you're able to get in a high-end store. There's not as much gross to go around. I feel like there are a lot of customers where they demand everything to be perfect every time. And if anything is not relayed perfectly from the advisor to or from the technician to the advisor to the customer, there's a high chance of things going wrong. So we do spend a lot of time, in the customer's always right scenario trying to make up. And sometimes that's lack of training, lack of tools. Like we said, a tough month where, things happen, tough cars, diags are wrong, the manual could be wrong, and it puts you in a tough point. And a lot of the time, those resources being shop equipment, training days, whatever it may be, that's the first thing to get in the way of that. So I'll say some of those stores that I see and talk to guys in, the ones that I've worked in have been pretty good and gracious with those things and always invested in the people that they have. But it does change the way we operate day to day. Like at our store, we can't miss just because we don't have as much gross built in as Aaron does in one job. You look at a timing chain on a German car and it's, what is it, 30 hours? A timing chain on a Honda is 4 hours. We can't miss. So like we have to be really in tune. All the information has to travel quickly. Everyone's got to take care of that subframe jack. We need two of them, and they're always in rotation. Like it makes everyone have to move to the same beat without skipping anything, or else it affects a lot of people's paycheck. So it's harder, I'd say.
I would say from the outside looking in now that I've had the benefit of having discussions with a lot of technicians in the last 4 years. I've also had the luxury of having discussions with a lot of service managers, fixed directors, and even GMs. Not just with the podcast, but with opportunities like being able to go to a SodaCon and having conversations, and NADA and having conversations. I think we say it on the time, and I've say it all the time on the podcast, that the most effective tool in the shop, the single most effective tool in the shop, is a good leader. That starts at the very top at every single store. It starts from the GM down. Now it also lends itself to the flip side. It also starts from the bottom up. And one of the challenges that GMs and fixed directors and service managers are presenting right now is you've got a population base that are in that swath of age that have way more options to put food on the table now than they ever have before, right? You can sit at home and there's literally thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs that will pay you to work from home. I work at one of them. I work for an awesome company. I work for two great leaders. But there's thousands of those jobs, and they pay about the same amount as a shop would to start working in the shop. And when you look at that from, just even from a car porter point of view, that's an entry way to get into the shop. Not necessarily turning wrenches, but as Ed Roberts would say, it's an aspiring technician. It's their foot in the door so they can start seeing what it's like to be in the shop, work around the shop, and understand it a little bit better. When they have the opportunity to go work at McDonald's, let alone work from home and perhaps an easier office job that requires very little skill, but they can do it remotely. If their one is very little effort, but a little bit of skill from home, and it's the same dollar per hour as starting in the shop as a porter, and it's 10 to 12 hours a day of hard labor every day, 6 days a week, it's human instinct to go, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would I do that? Why not just work 8 hours at home and make the same amount of money and not break my back every day, right? That is a from the bottom standpoint. But the flip side is I don't think we've done a great job as a whole, bottom, middle, or top, at making sure there's a pathway for all of them. So when we're talking about having the challenges in the shop, like you're presenting across all the shops that you worked at and shops that I've worked at, is having the right tools and having the right mentality so that when you don't miss, because I'm pretty sure that Aaron would say that they can't miss either, right? There's not really an option in either shop, in any brand, because the shops that are missing, even a little bit, they're the ones struggling right now. They're struggling to keep, they're struggling to keep technicians in the bay. They're struggling to keep customers in the service drive. So to that point, let's go to the negative side here. Let's look at the positive side. So because of those challenges, I'll start with Aaron. let's look at, and let's not perhaps use a more complicated example. Let's use some simple examples. You're in the shop, you guys lead a team. Teams are obviously different sizes, but you have a challenge car in the shop. What is your process right now as somebody, as the go-to person in the shop from a leadership standpoint? What is your process? Doesn't matter what the challenge is. It could be a person who's being difficult. It could be a car that's being difficult. It could be a situation that's difficult in terms of the customer. It doesn't matter. Do you have a written process, or even if you don't have a written process, do you have a process that you go through based on that situation?
Yeah, we have processes for, well, one of the perks of being in a smaller store, it's very hands-on for me. The service team, there's only a handful of guys, so it's communication is quite a bit easier. I can say, hey, grab all the guys real quick and we can and have a conversation. So I'm readily available for all the guys. If there's a problem customer, I'm usually involved. A service repair that has created a problem, I'll be directly involved, not only with customer and the advisor and the service manager, but then I will follow that repair through to the shop. And it really just depends on the level. I'm fortunate that, like I told my guys in our Friday meeting this morning, I said, I really appreciate you guys, because I would let all my guys work on my car. There's some massive service departments that you can't do that. And so, like, I trust all of their judgment, and I trust all their moral compass to make the right decision and to find me if they feel like they've maxed out what they can do as far as the diagnosis or the repair. And then I personally get involved, and we take that to the end, whether that's me helping them diagnose the car, they repair the car, or we have other customers with other repair orders that have to be complete. I'll take that repair all the way in if I have to. Whatever it takes to make sure that we don't, like you said, we can't miss on the customer sat portion. We have to deliver. And if that's face to face, me and the customer, car to car, me face to car, whatever that takes to deliver, that's what we do.
Awesome. Now, to your side, Michael, when you guys get into a problem car, let's put you in the same situation. Now, I would suggest that both of you, if you haven't, I would highly recommend that you do digitize or get something written on how you go through those, at least the basics, because one of the things that is highlighted again today for me, but if you die today, like we get off this podcast, you guys go out for a drive and you get hit by a bus. For the most part, your team will grieve, and it's going to be a very emotional day when they find out that you've passed. But the next thing that happens is either they're going to promote somebody in the shop or they're going to hire somebody in. And one of the things that I know about you both already, just with how you guys respond, is that you care about your teams. And one of the best things that you can do for caring for your teams is, if you're not present, giving them, for lack of a better term, a Bible to work from for all the things that you've learned and built in your shops in terms of leading the teams through challenging situations. If there is something written to go through for them to go, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. They told me that I'm now the shop foreman. What do I do? Now they've got a book that they can come from. So I would highly recommend that if you don't have any of those things written, Aaron, Mike, that you get them written. Even if it's a voice to text on Google Drive or on Google Docs, literally just talk at it. Throw it into Chat GPT and then get it to format it. And now you've got a book to start from, and then you can just start adding from it. But that's a really great way to say, hey, I care about you guys enough to know that if I get hit by a bus today, you guys are going to be okay tomorrow, because here's all the processes that I go through every day. So to that point, Michael, when you're in a challenging situation, and it doesn't matter what store you've been at, maybe go back a little bit or not, that completely depends on you. What was the last challenging situation that you didn't know what to do, that you had to ask for help for, and what was it?
Oh, man, I'll say my favorite, if this makes it on the internet, it's going to be great for everyone that I work with to recall it. But I'll say it's working on a Honda Prologue. They come in, and as everyone knows, it's a GM product, and it comes in for a brake booster, like pressure sensor DTC. We follow the troubleshooting, and it leads us to replacing this assembly, this control unit. And we have GM's parts catalog, and it's kind of disguised as a Honda version of it. But it just leads you back and forth. And we had to make tech line cases. How did I handle it? I handled it with the team, because once again, we're all figuring this out. And some of the instructions, when this car rolled out, it has a little logo of a construction worker, and it says loading. It says like pending. So we don't even have the instructions for this car, and we're just getting through it together, right? So it's myself, it's the shop foreman, it's the technicians who have 30 years of experience, a technician who has 15 years of experience. It's the newer guys from Express, and we're all open to opinions, open to a different perspective. Because while I'm chasing my tail on this car for 3 days and I'm bleeding it, trying to do a software procedure that doesn't work, and I can't tell if it's a broken car or a software problem, once I get to that eighth quart of fluid, like we just got to try something different, right? So I'm over here trying to figure out a problem. And realistically, someone could walk up and start just trying to rule things out. And it's funny because our process is always, did I overlook anything? Let's start over, right? Let's make sure I've used all of my free things. So I'm looking at tech line cases. I'm looking at Facebook groups. Other guys in the shop are helping me look too. Now we're looking for GM products. We're not even looking at Hondas anymore. So like that for me, it's always super humbling because it's nerve-wracking when people are looking at you for answers. And really it's just someone stumbling gracefully through not having the answers. That's
Love
really
that so much.
cool.
Stumbling gracefully.
Yeah,
I would say I've spent most of my life stumbling gracefully.
and that's it. Like I can tell a lot of guys what did not work. And I just have to remember that's pretty successful. Because if
Yeah.
I got some guys that are super high level around me, or even just persistent, right? We're going to get to the
Mhm.
bottom of this, man. We know a lot of things that it's not. Let's not focus on the DTC or the car. Let's keep ruling things out. And that one, I asked for help from everybody, made tech line cases. Even the tech line case was rough, man, because they asked for videos because it didn't make sense. So I'm making my own harness and load testing light bulbs, and they're telling me that's not like, I see what you're saying, but it doesn't make sense. And I'm like, well, if it doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't make sense to me in person, and I don't have the manual, right?
Right. So,
So
and we've all been through some challenging things like that, but I think that the biggest thing in there is you involved the team. The team was involved in the situation. You're learning together. You're building a process on things that may not even have. It sounds like they didn't even have a process to figure out. And now that you've built that, you've submitted that. I think let's talk about submitting tickets for tech line and things like that for a second. There's an overwhelming amount of information out there. It's like, oh, yeah, tech line, right?
yeah,
I think one of the challenges, and I'm looking forward to trying to get Dale Pettigrew back on the show. He's an FSC for Nissan Canada, and I'm hopefully gonna try and get a couple more on here to get their perspectives as well. But the tickets are vital for the manufacturer, right? The tickets are vital, and the better your tickets are in descriptions, in analysis, in information that you provide, the better they are, the better they can be for the rest of the brand across. So when you submit a ticket, remember that yes, you're trying to get an answer for yourself to fix the car and fix the customer and get them on their way, and that's a very commendable thing to do. But the other thing is, if you're submitting a ticket, it means somebody else gets access to that piece of information too, right?
yeah,
Because the FSEs will look at all of that information, and now you're helping the rest of the brand. You're helping other technicians do well and be more successful. So just remember that too, that it's really helpful. And that's why I wanted to talk about that challenge a little bit. So let's talk about stories here a little bit. So we got a little bit of both, but I want to dive into kind of the middle. And we talked a little bit about the start for both of you, and we've talked a little bit about the end and some of the challenges. But I want to talk about the middle, because the middle is generally the kind of places where we find the boring stuff. And as you both know, I say quite frequently, the boring stuff is where we make the money. So in the middle part of your career, so let's backtrack a bit and think of yourself. You're about 5 to 8 years in. Okay. Think about the tools that you have. Think about the toolbox that you have. Think about the diagnostic equipment that you have, if you have any yet. Think about your day to day. And I want you to describe that. You're not yet tenured. You're not yet leading, but you're deep into the career of turning wrenches enough to have somewhere between 10,000 and 15,000 hours in the business now. Tell me what that day is like first.
So for me, going back, at that point, the retailer I was working for at the time, same one I worked for until I took this role here at this store, was growing leaps and bounds, doing great in the market, growing very, very strong, and great management support. I wanted to just be a killer. I was young and I like to work. I like to work hard. Like I enjoy the work. And so for me at that point it was just like, how do I get as much work done as possible? I was focused on just driving hours, show up at 7, give me the tickets. I will get them done. I will find a way. I will buy the tool. I will get the thing that I need because I wanted to, one, grow my career, make as much money as possible. But also like I always sort of enjoyed the challenge of the process. Our cars can be very difficult. The engine comes out for lots of stuff. I always got a lot of satisfaction of like, hey, I can completely take that car apart in a few hours. Like I enjoyed that process. Some guys don't like the real mechanical stuff. And at that phase of my career, I was just enamored with it. I loved it. I loved doing clutches. I loved pulling engines. I liked it. So, a typical day for me was show up as soon as I could. And that point in that shop, I always felt like I was 30, maybe 40 hours of approved repairs just waiting to get done. It was a good spot to be in for a tech. Very rarely was it the don't have anything to do, get assigned a ticket, hope it gets approved. It was more just how do we get this out as quickly as we can and get these customers happy, keep them satisfied, getting the parts. It was like a grind year, and I kind of miss it. I really love those years. It was really fun, and I had a great team around me too. Like some of those guys I still talk to every day. We were just killing it together and it was fun.
I think that speaks volumes about not just the brand, but the store itself.
It was a dream team. Like we reminisce about it there. And, one of those guys I still work with at my shop now today. And we always talk about like, man, how much fun it was. We were young. We just showed up and got after it. Like it just seemed like the shop and we used to say like, this is like the shop everybody wants to work at. Like, this is where everybody wants to be. This is kind of like, is this as good as it gets? Like, that was really for young techs. Like we were making great money and, we didn't even work weekends. It was awesome.
Yeah, you can't fake the team chemistry part either, right? Like if you
No,
ask
no, no, no.
one good morning and no one says living the dream, just dragging everyone down, you made it, man. You made it.
Yeah,
Everyone's just
That's a big
knocking off
deal.
their
That's a big
yeah.
yeah, we
deal.
were
It
friends.
sounds
Like,
like Mike may not have had that same kind of experience in that. What was your 5 to 8 year kind of day to day look like?
You know who to talk to and you know who not to talk to, right? So we've all had those at a couple of shops, but probably in that range for me, 5 to 8 years, learning machine, anybody and everybody. If you had something to offer, I'm trying to help you because I'm taking it. I'm taking whatever you have free to offer. And realistically, those guys put me on a rocket ship to like learning, right? Yeah, I'm probably 5 years in, but these guys who took me under their wings, they're 20-year master techs. They're, the shop foreman. They're the new young gun who came from another dealership but does CVTs in 3 hours. Like
Mm.
he can tell me every socket that needs to be done and lay it out on a tray. And I didn't even think that was a thing. So really it's copying people. It's stealing like an artist and seeing how you can take their process and run with it if they're willing to give it to you, right?
yeah,
It's
you never want to
learning.
be the smartest guy in the room. Then you have nothing left to learn. You always want those peers that are ready to
And
kill
I
it.
never want to be like the smartest guy in the room, right? Because to me, you're in the wrong room. And so, like, if you're too smart to learn from anyone around you, you're looking at the wrong things. Like, I'll
Yeah.
never forget one of the apprentices I was like teaching or working with in the beginning of maybe his first week, man. I'm talking about how to diagnose a parking sensor on a 10 Armada and how it kind of sucks because there's no DTCs, but you got to press the button the right way, count the beeps and stuff like that. And we're talking about how it works. And I'm like, yeah, it's sonar, it makes a noise, it bounces back. And meanwhile, the kid's right there listening to all four sensors. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, you said it's sonar. And I'm like, yeah, man, but like, let's not get crazy. He takes a stethoscope and puts it on one, tells me, yep, that's the bad one right there. And I'm like, you better not be right, man. And there's no way. And the kid's right. The one that's not clicking is broken. So it's like, who's the apprentice here and who's like the trainer? Just if you're willing to take it, it can come from anywhere. But
That's
that's
good.
what my 5 to 8
That's
looks like.
awesome. There's a couple
The
things that I
process.
want to dissect there in a little bit. Okay,
Yeah.
so first things first, one of the challenges I think in our marketplace as a technician, and it doesn't matter how many years in it is, I think there has a tendency to be a little bit too much ego. And the reason I say that is I think there's a lot of technicians out there that think that they have learned everything they can learn in the shop they're in. And one of the challenges there is I think they're leaving even if they have good intentions to go to a shop or to a place or to a business or whatever they're going to because they want to learn more, and that intention is that they want to learn more. I think they
Yeah.
haven't taken the time and the energy and the effort required to actually learn everything there is in the shop that they're in. Now, is the shop toxic? Are they being dramatically underpaid? Any of one of those things is the service manager complete something or other? That's very possible. So leaving is not based on the learning. Leaving is not being based on the learning only. But I think a lot of the challenges are, you were talking about learning from all the individuals in the shop. If anybody's willing to give you something for free in terms of learning and education, you're taking it. Well, I think we don't do enough of that. And I'm going to tell the story very quickly again, like I've told it 100 times, but the reason why I'm in the trade still is because my very first shop foreman would spend every week, they'd spend anywhere. It doesn't matter whether Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I can't even remember what day of the week it was anymore. But he would sit us down, or he would give us a work order that he'd already worked on, top foreman. And it was something that nobody else could fix or nobody else wanted to fix or whatever. And he'd already diagnosed it. He already figured it out. And he'd
Yeah.
hand us the work order, and the five of us. And the five of us would be like scratching our heads. And we'd be doing that until like 11, 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to figure out what's wrong with this car, this truck, this van. It doesn't matter what it is. We try to figure it out. And in the morning, we'd sit down and have coffee with him, and first thing in the morning, the next morning, and he's like, so what is it? And we go over what we did. Well, it took us as a hive mind of 5 in that, we're varying degrees of, 0 to 3 years in the trade to try and come up with these answers that we knew nothing about. And he'd be like, yep, nope, whatever, whatever. But we did that for years. And I think one of the things that was lost is that near the end of that, the technicians that were in the shop who were licensed started to spend time with us doing that. Not just
Yeah.
him, but also the technicians. So we were downloading their information. And there were 10 techs in that shop on top of there are 11 techs in that shop on top of the apprentices. So there's like 11 other people to learn from. And it
Yep.
really takes years to learn everything it is to know about the person that one person. Forget about everybody else. One. And I had 11. Right? So you could spend years downloading what they've learned. So to think that you've learned everything that you can learn in a shop after spending 2 years there, especially when you're in a smaller or a slightly larger size store and you got 15, 20, 25 techs in a shop, you could spend a decade there and not learn everything you can learn about the brand and about the people there that have something to offer for you to learn. So I think there's a bit of ego, there's a bit of impatience, and there's a bit of misunderstanding there where we could learn from. So to that point, I want to take this to the next step. So you both basically said, hammer as much work as you possibly can, learn as much as you can so you can make as much as you possibly can in that middle part. That's the boring, but also fun part. Learn and make as much money as you can. That's the middle part. Now you're closer to we won't say the end, but we've crested the high production part of your career. And you're now into the trying to teach others and lead others to do what you did in that 5 to 8 years. So they can make a lot of money, they can learn a lot, and so on and so forth. So what is perhaps, now that you're getting towards that end, what is maybe one, I won't go to the interesting question here yet, but what's the one piece of advice that you give all of the technicians on a regular basis in order to be a better technician every day, Aaron?
So I think the most important thing, and like probably maybe the theme, is that I've told every single helper and every single apprentice that I've ever had, I said, if you encounter anybody in this business that tells you they know everything, they're full of shit. I told them all that. If somebody is telling you that they have mastered every aspect of this business and they have nothing left to learn, find somebody else to teach you stuff, because it's not something that anybody can achieve. There's enough brain power in the world for somebody to know every single thing and have nothing to gain and nothing to grow and nothing to learn. It's just toxic. And there's a lot of people are really unhappy in the automotive industry. I've been really blessed and fortunate to have a good career, great family, and all the things that make me happy. But I don't want any of my helpers to encounter that, especially for me. And so I always tell them, like, if you're learning from somebody who tells you they know it all, learn from somebody else. They do not. That is not a true thing. Just kind of avoid that as you grow, and you'll be more successful.
Awesome. Michael, same question.
All right. I'm going to have to say the one thing I leave them with is like to always remember, like, your reputation takes years to build, right? And it affects so many things. It affects your relationship with advisors, whether they sell for you or not. Like you guys spoke before, whether or not someone would let you work on their car, right? Whether or not Like as the foreman, I can trust that you actually check these voltages at the wire or not, or if I need to like come up behind you and make sure you're doing these things. But that reputation takes years and years and years to build and seconds to ruin. Like that's something that most technicians forget because you get lost in the weeds in the day to day, in the boring, like you're saying, right? But long term, you have to remember that because that's what it's about. It's about your name. The last thing anyone would ever want is having to go and rebuild at another shop, right? When we said there's 10 different people that we could learn from, and that's just them at this level. Imagine if once that guy gets to a higher level, he ends up being a better teacher than your shop foreman. That might be someone who's more your management style, someone you could learn from, right? And that brings me to another one, and that's like help your managers manage you, help your leaders lead you. You got to ask good questions, right? But don't be afraid to ask the questions because I may not explain it the right way, but I guarantee you I'm taking that question home with me. It's just like that car that beat me up for hours and hours and days. Most of those things are fixed at night. If you have a good leader, that's where they're fixing these things at home. So when we come the next day for coffee, that's when the clean cut delivered answer is laid out for the team. And that's the stuff that's going to build for years and years and hopefully build a lot more leaders, not just technicians.
Agreed. Because I think that's one of the things that we are suffering a loss of the most of right now is having people willing and capable and passionate about leading and building leaders. Because one of the phrases I heard long ago, and I keep iterating it, is you're not a leader until you've built a leader that can build a leader. So the idea being is you're not a leader until you've built legacy. So
Yeah.
when it comes to being able to trust those around you, having people who are humble around you, people who can stumble gracefully around you in terms of being a leader, somebody who is willing to put in the extra time, the energy, the effort, somebody who is more than capable and patient to listen to every single question that you ever have. Those are the kinds of people that we need more of. The ones that are willing to hold you accountable as a technician to say, hey, you screwed up, or hey, you did really awesome this week, or whatever the case may be, whatever the iterative notion it needs to be on a regular basis. We need people who are willing and capable and passionate about doing that to a much higher level and a much higher volume than we've had in the last decade or more, because we've lost them. We're losing them to retirement. We're losing them to other trades. We're losing them to other businesses and verticals, because I think as a whole, both independent and dealer alike, we're doing leaders a disservice, mostly because we're not spending the time, energy, and effort required to build them. So I appreciate you both for doing that and giving that. So let's go to the next level. Instead of just to the apprentice, let's, as an aggregated average, let's look at it from a high level. The most important question that I ask on the show on a regular basis: what's your one piece of advice for a technician to live a happier, healthier, more productive life? Aaron.
I think that some of the things that are most important for technicians is to manage your personal finances. Guys get, it happens all the time. I don't know if it's unique to our trade. I've really only had, I've been a soldier. I've been a tech, like really only had 2 jobs. I don't know if the other trades share this stuff, but techs get screwed up financially all the time. I feel like I've met a lot of techs who just, they didn't have their finances right at home. And it's a lot harder to have fun at work if you're really worried about paying bills at home. It's really tough. I've of course had to learn that myself, coming up. But I always tell my guys, our company has a pretty good match, pretty good program, and I tell them, you're not going to be my age and regret saving some money. Like you're not gonna get into your 40s and be like, dang, I wish I wouldn't have saved money when I was 22. I'm not gonna do that. Like I guarantee you're not gonna be mad you save some money. So save a little bit of money, manage your finances. It reduces the overall stress of your entire life. And then not only is work more fun, but everything's more fun. You have more fun at home. You have more fun on the weekends. You can be a better family man, a better boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, son, daughter. You can do all those things better. You got to manage your personal finances. And being a career where most people are 100% commission based, it can get a little dicey. So that's one of the things I always tell my guys, like, save a little bit of money, get your finances in check. Your career will go better. Your career goes better when you're having a good time at work. It just does.
I appreciate that very much. I think you might actually be the first person who has ever discussed personal finances in that manner in like 100+ guests. So I really appreciate that. And it's interesting because we're having this conversation in group chats over the last couple of months as well, what it's like to be in an industry where up here in the north, there really isn't a whole lot of retirement savings for automotive dealership technicians. It's just not been a big thing. I, of course, when I spent my time at corporate Mercedes-Benz, working for the dealership at head office, there was, and because we were corporately owned, we also got access to all of the corporate benefits, not just the dealership. So there was a potential pension involved, and there was things like that. But I don't know any technicians up here in Canada that aren't working for if they're working for a massive group like Lithia or whatever, they might have someone involved. But for the most part, most of the single points or even a couple of store point stores, there's no pension, there's no retirement thought process in any of the salaries or even obviously the full commissions of flat rate. That's just not thought of, and it's just not paid. So having some kind of plan, the instant you get into the business, whilst it seems overwhelming, 18, 19, 20, to think about your retirement, believe me, $100 a month from the time that you're 18 to the time you're 65 is a lot more money than trying to figure out how to make $4,000 a month, go to retirement at 40, right? And that's the thing. And I've done the math, and I've done a presentation on the math on what it's like to retire versus and saving $100 a month since the time you're 18, since the time you're 40. I've done the math and I've published the math. It's really hard. So if you can get your personal finances in order early and just kind of stick to it, even if it's a small amount, but you're saving for it, that's a really big deal. And I liken it to training. We teach my son on a regular basis. My son's on a rep soccer team, and running a 5K on a regular basis isn't just so that you can run more. And this is one of the things that athletes, high level elite athletes, will tell you, that play sports that have running in them, not that they are runners. So, for example, anybody in football, anybody in soccer, anybody in those kinds of running kinds of sports, running endurance wise as part of training doesn't just help you run. It also gives you the brain capacity that when you are tired, when you are struggling, you have the brain capacity to do the job you're supposed to do without thinking. So when it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you've trained properly for the last 3 months, 6 months, a year, you're no longer out of breath at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You're no longer thinking about, oh my God, I'm sweating buckets. It's not 30 degrees or 105 degrees in the shop. It's air conditioned. You're not sweating buckets for any reason other than the fact that it happens to be warm. You're sweating buckets because you're thinking. And if you have the capacity to think because everything else inside of you is taken care of, you can get the job done a whole lot easier. Same thing goes to investing in your future. If you invest early, long term. What's your piece of advice, Michael?
Man, I would say it's a little different for me now, and I think it's so much more important that, like, technicians don't box themselves in. Like, they set goals and kind of build the life inside of work and outside of work that they wanna live, right? I don't wanna see people just say, like, "Oh, I'm a technician, I don't do this." Like, whether it be good with numbers or whether it be good with people or whatever it is, right? Because those skill sets, they translate to something outside of work too. And I like to see people building that life that they want outside of work too, and along with the one inside of work. And eventually they're going to cross paths. But I don't think we slow down enough because of the flat rate mentality or mindset to make sure like we're going in the direction we want to be. So I look at a lot of these technicians who end up being grumpy and upset all the time, right? I think that is trained as well, just like the financial literacy, just like the ability to speak with people. All of these things are learned, trained, and practiced, but they're good inside of work and outside of work. So you have to build on that. You have to set goals, decide who you're going to be at the end of the day, and be proud of your work and be proud of the person you're building. Those are super important.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We've talked about goals on the show a lot, and in 10 mil and some of the coaches corners, we talked about building goals and understanding what is a goal, how to create a goal, what is a goal from a rudimentary standpoint. There's all kinds of things that go into that. A lot of people go, okay, well, I'm going to make 100 grand a year.
Yeah.
That's not a goal. That's not a
You're
goal.
gonna hit it. Yeah. You're gonna hit it.
You might hit it, but
Yeah.
that's not a goal, because reality is goal includes action steps. How do you get
Yeah.
the goal? What are the things that you have to do? What are the things that you have to learn? What are the things that has to happen around you in order for you to hit the goal? When is that goal going to occur? Because the reality is, if you don't put a timeline on the goal or the series of steps, you could just say, oh, well, I meant next year,
Yeah.
or I meant when I'm
Move the
40.
goalpost.
Right?
Yeah.
You keep moving the goalpost as an excuse because you're also not holding yourself accountable. That's what a true goal is. A goal has all of the action steps, all of the things that need to be done between here and hitting the goal and the timeline that's going to occur. It's okay if you have to adjust along the way. That's life. Life happens. But if you don't have things written, like I've now said a couple of times, and I say on a regular basis, get things written. If you don't have it written, you won't hold yourself accountable to anything because it's just the fugazi, whatever.
Yeah.
It's not real until you get it written, right? So to that point, thank you very much, both of you. Thank you very, very, very much for your time. I'm really happy that I got to spend a little bit of time with you. Very happy that you both gave us a little bit of time. Hope both of you got a little bit out of this, and I hope everybody watching at home got a little bit out of this. Is there anything that you guys like to say in closing?
Nope, that's it. Thanks for the time. I appreciate it. It was good to catch up with you guys.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was good to see you guys. I appreciate what you guys are doing, and it's been fun.
Excellent. Excellent. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to end the show like we always do. Hopefully, you like, comment, and share, subscribe to the show as you always do to the Wrench Nerds podcast. I have a quote to end the show, and I think talking about some of the things that we did in the episode kind of rings true. I like how every single time I can pull something at random of what I feel in my heart to pull an appropriate quote. It seems to hit home every single time. Today, Thomas Edison, I have not failed. I have just learned 10,000 ways that it doesn't work. Ladies and gentlemen, positive pushes, negative pulls, that makes absolutely no sense, and always clean your toys before you put them away.